I was sitting for my for an interview with Godrej after my MBA, and he looks at me and he's like, I think you will get through this, but why do I feel you don't want it? And I was like, I think you're right. There was a time where I thought I was making nothing out of this. I was putting in too much. It was taking away too much of my life, and I was giving way too many hours for work, and I was not enjoying it.
Every time we put up a video online, there's always somebody in the comment section who says that get people who are not from the IIMs, get people who are not MBAs. So this season of Konversations Cafe, we have a very specific focus on trying to bring stories of women entrepreneurs because whether it is the number of students that we have at Alt-Uni, whether it is the number of employees that we have at Alt-Uni and InsideIIM, the goal is that we reach 50-50 parity with respect to men and women, whether they are working for us, whether they are learning from us, or whether they are getting featured on our platform, right? So it gives me immense pleasure to welcome our next guest. She's an entrepreneur and has built a fabulous brand from scratch. Please give a big round of applause to Shikha Murarka.
Thank you, Ankit. That was a very kind introduction, and thank you everyone for coming early in the morning.
So, Shikha, wanted to understand from you, why did you choose commerce in the first place? I know you are from a business family, but was it always the natural option for you? How did that happen?
Honestly, it was never a natural option for me. Coming from a business family, you're mostly unaware of where you're going to head because everyone in the family only talks about what you're going to do with the business next. And that's what happened with me also. Especially commerce was never my thing. Never. Like I never thought that I will end up doing commerce because I always thought I'll go to a creative field and I will do probably fine arts or something like that. But at that point of time, I think there was so much, I was firstly not that aware, maybe. And also coming from a background like that, it did not help because everyone thought that, what is fine arts? Why do you want to do fine arts? Like, who does fine arts? So I said, okay, let me just go with what people are telling me to do at that point of time, say commerce. And I did it. Because, peer pressure, you may say so, or
Marwadi family pressure.
Yeah. At that point of time, my father and all of us, in the family used to say, yeah, you will eventually take up business. I said, what am I going to do with your chemical business? I don't want to take up chemical business. So they said, oh, we'll figure it out. That was one thing I was clear about. I was not clear about what I wanted to do in life, whether I wanted to do an MBA, whether I wanted to do commerce. But that one thing I was very clear that this business is not happening for me.
Okay. So, you did a bunch of things when you were in college as well. Since I know you for many years,
yeah.
I don't think that you have ever not been doing something.
Yeah, that's true.
So what was the inspiration, motivation behind, you're part of every single college festival, you're also part of Rotaract, you were doing side businesses while you were in college.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, like to party, date, go out. Maybe you did that as well, but what was the motivation to be so active during that time? Because honestly, I don't think everybody is.
See, also it depends on the company you keep, right? And at that point of time, I was lucky to have friends like Ankit and all the others that I did. When you see your surrounding doing a lot of things, you don't want to be that person who's just like, oh, I attend college, get up at 10 o'clock and sleep at 10 o'clock in the night. You don't want to be that person. And I was also very self-driven, like to do new things, to learn new things. And because I didn't want to do that business, I wanted to prove to my family that I will do some side hustle, but I will do something, not what you're telling me to do. So I did a number of things, like side by side, I started a company called Autumn in which I used to sell like laptop sleeves. So I used to go to the market myself and buy leather products and then make these things. And it was a very different experience, but it taught me a lot because, I've realized one thing, that the more you try to understand what you like, you eventually land up doing what you love. So that was a very important part of my journey. I also did graphic designing on the side because I didn't get into an arts field. So I thought, let me just try and do a course. At least I'll get some knowledge. So I was very sure that I want to learn new things and explore, and then I'll see eventually what I like.
I think you were already earning income while you were in like first year college, second year college.
Yes.
You were already always at it.
Yes.
And was being financially independent so early on a motivation, or money was just a byproduct of your interests?
See, honestly speaking, Ankit, by God's grace, I come from a family where money was never an issue. So it was always an additional factor. And it was always like, okay, whether I make it or not. Luckily, I came from a background where it did not matter as such that I'm running the family. So I could explore. Some of us don't have that option. Fortunately, I had that option where I could explore and I could do different things. But money was never a motivational factor, even till date. Of course, it's a huge factor when you're running a business. But when I do something different or I try something new, money is never the first thing that comes to my mind, because our field is something to do with so much of creativity. Now, coming to a term, it's become very important because, there are so many expenses that I have to pay for, and, there are rents and there are salaries. So, of course, now it's become an important factor, but not then.
So, I mean, you took up commerce because of peer pressure, whatever you saw in your family, etc., and there was no active encouragement for, the arts. Why did you do an MBA after that? Again, that sounds like a peer pressure decision rather than something that you wanted to do.
It was actually a more lost decision than anything else. So after commerce, the most obvious thing that most of us land up doing is an MBA. So I think that's where I actually really got to know Ankit, because we used to go for our MBA classes together, and I was probably among the ones who used to not study so much. And there were people who were like, at it. Okay, I'm going to crack IIM, and but I always knew, no, I don't want to do any of this. I didn't even know why was I sitting there in that class. I always used to question myself that, okay, why am I here? What am I doing here? But then I said, okay, well, that's the best option after this. Maybe I'll do a job after that. That was in my head. But to be honest, job was also never an option in my head. In my head, although, I always thought that, after an MBA, I'll probably work at in a big company, and I'll, find my way through that. But somewhere in my heart, I always knew that I'm going to land up doing something of my own. So even, I still remember while, this is off the topic, I was sitting for my, for an interview with Godrej after my MBA, and, he looks at me and he's like, I think you will get through this, but why do I feel you don't want it? And I was like, I think you're right. And he was just shocked because he said, really? You don't want this job offer? I said, no. And he said, you're probably the first one who's walking out from here saying, I don't want this. And I was like, yeah, actually, I don't want it. So, yeah.
Do you think that, so you went to Wellinger for your MBA.
Yeah.
And do you think that your MBA helps you now in what you do?
See, well, it does help me, if I have to say that, but it was not necessary. I would have loved to do like a hospitality course, or now that I'm into what I am, I would have loved to go to LCB, London or Paris and do a course at that point of time. And it would have made more sense to me, even now. But having said that, MBA does help because, like how do I strategize? How do I plan my business ahead? How is my competition doing? What am I supposed to do with my competition? All these things, I have a better idea and more clarity than someone who's just, gotten up and started baking. So it does help.
I think Shikha is like a dream guest for us because for the first 10 minutes, she spoke about how she kept upskilling herself into all kinds of different things when she was in college. And then after that, she also said that MBA is also important. So I think, anybody who is an InsideIIM community follower or an All-Tuni follower, I think, Shikha is essentially telling you to keep following us as well. So you can keep upskilling yourself.
Yeah,
and
actually, it is very important. I see people in my community, they are doing their things. But the only upper hand that I get from them is I know how to plan. And I know what to do next, probably a little better than the rest of them. And that's because of my MBA.
So, Shikha, I think important for everyone to understand here, you tried a lot of businesses, right? Like,
Yeah.
for example, you spoke about the leather products one.
Yeah.
Then you spoke about the graphic design business. I'm sure you would have tried a bunch of other things that
I
we
did.
don't even know about.
Yeah, in fact, I did run an agency for 4 years. I mean, a graphic design agency for 4 years. So after my MBA, when I eventually did not take up Godrej, I decided that, because I had done a course in graphic designing, I said, I think I do have the skill of understanding what a design should be like. And I did start an agency for about 4 years. I did run and I did have very good clients. Godrej was my client. So that was, and yeah, I did have a bunch of clients who were from, the industry, and it was great until it got too much.
So how did you come to MishMash as a idea? And when you say until it got too much, का मतलब क्या होता है? Like agency business, did you get bored, or was it something you couldn't handle?
No, I mean, honestly, it's also about, here is where the money also comes in. I mean, if you are working your ass out day in and day out, and you almost feel like I'm making nothing out of this because, you are paying so much and your employees are there. There was a time where I thought I was making nothing out of this. I was putting in too much. It was taking away too much of my life, and I was giving way too many hours for work, and I was not enjoying it. And I'm someone, if I don't enjoy it, I will not do it. It's as simple as that. Because I think you should only do things you really enjoy so that you can sustain in it and you can be in it for longer. And that I was not enjoying. And, like my baking did not just happen, it literally just happened because there was a time I was so fed up with what I was doing that one day my mom just comes to me and says, hey, I think, you know what, I'm going to enroll you for a baking course. I was like, are you mad? Because I was someone who did not even enter a kitchen then. I did not even know how to make I still don't know how to make tea, but I didn't know how to make coffee back then also. And I said, listen, bro, I'm not going to any, baking class and all. You go. So she said, just try it. It's going to be a break. I was like, okay, fine. I went there and I really enjoyed myself. So it was just great. And it was just a very average class. So I'm like, okay, if I'm enjoying this so much, I might as well just see what happens. So of course my agency was still going on at the background, and then I went to Sapphire. I just looked through their courses and I said, let's just see what they have in store for me. So I used to run the agency from 10 to 1, be in it, go to Sapphire from 2 to 5, come back to my agency, and just life went on for 6 months like that. And I did a 6 months course there. And then, so I was running this parallel to my father's office, in another office space. And one fine day, my dad is like, why are your employees not coming? I said, because I said bye to all of them. He said, what? Why? I said, because I'm going to stop this. So he said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to London. He thought I have really lost my mind, okay? And he literally told me, I think you need to go show yourself to a doctor because this is not happening. What do you mean you're going to London? He said, what are you going to do in London? He said, you can't go. I don't know a single person in London. Where are you going to stay? What are you going to do? I said, figured everything out. He said, when did you figure this out? I said, yeah, I've done it. And he didn't talk to me for a month at least. And he said, okay, you're not going. I said, I'm going. And I had no idea that what am I going to come back and do? I said, okay. So I went and I figured everything. I tried finding out the best artists in the world, and I went and I learned. I put all
When you say best artists in what?
So basically, bakery is not as simple as it looks. It's divided into 2 or 3 categories. One is a cake artist, one is a baker, one is a pastry chef. So I'm a baker and I'm a cake artist. I'm not a pastry chef. So I actually went, there are people specialized in the world which we probably don't know as someone who's just sitting here, that someone who's specialist in making sugar flowers, someone who specializes in making figurines, someone who specializes in making, topsy-turvy cakes. So there's a lot of fields in this. So I did a lot of research, and again, that's where my MBA also helped. And I stayed there for 3 months. I learned from all these amazing artists in London and also traveled to different places around London to learn. And I came back, again, not knowing what to do with whatever I had learned. Because I, again, came from a background of, there was no culinary background. I'm not from the hospitality business, so no one took me seriously then, saying, hey, she doesn't know anything. Okay, you learn from people, but what next? Because, that's a thing where you start questioning yourself. Okay, I did all of this, but now what do I do next?
What I find interesting is that you decided to pursue a course again.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many people who do end up becoming, home entrepreneurs, making food and chocolates and bakery items, etc. But they don't necessarily go through a course. Is this something I wanted to check with you? How important do you think is it for people to actually take up programs and courses to be good at what they do? Do you think the course helped you in any way?
Of course, absolutely. Today, whatever I am, it is only because of what I learned there. I mean, it is, and this is my opinion, I could be wrong. It is not absolutely necessary that you have to follow a book and say, hey, I'm going to go to a culinary school and only then I can do good in my life. Today, I have chefs coming from culinary schools and learning from me. I have chefs from Marriott, I have chefs from other places who come to me and learn. So those courses obviously helped, and the journey doesn't stop there. Every year, even now, I at least learn, and I travel, and now because of the last 2 years I've not been able to do it, but just before that also I went to Italy. I learned whatever is the latest things. So I think it's about updating yourself and trying to understand what's running in the market, because it's very important. You cannot become stagnant. You cannot say this is my skill and that's it. Maybe it works for people, I'm not saying that, but it wouldn't work for me because I didn't belong to this background. Unless and until I came up with something new, or I put something new onto the plate, I would have not been noticed. And that was a very important thing for me.
Obviously, going to London, going to Italy, all of that also costs money. Would you say that, did you have that in your mind that you will be able to make up return on the investment that you're putting in here behind these programs?
Yeah, actually I was very sure at some point. I was really very sure that money to ho jayega. I will make this up. It's not a problem. Because one thing I know, I believe a lot in myself. Whether anyone believes in me or no, I believe a lot in myself. Saying, okay, I think I will be able to figure it out. So even when I came back, however clueless I was, I started putting myself together, and I started contacting the right kind of people, saying that, hey, I'm back. I wanted to conduct some classes at your studio. The first person I contacted was Pooja Dingra, and she's probably one of the most well-known people in the industry. And I did teach at a studio for the next 2 years. So that's where I thought it was important, because you have to get some kind of recognition from a platform. And because I was not from the industry, I had to start somewhere. So I think that was probably the only way for me forward there. And back then I worked from a home kitchen with a 9x9 oven, like literally a 9-inch by 9-inch. And I remember there was a time where I got, say, 800 cupcakes order, and my
800 cupcake order.
Yeah,
okay.
And my entire home was filled with cupcakes. My bed, my parents' bed, everything. Until then, my dad was not taking me seriously and said, I'm very sure you're going to leave this in 1 year. I'm not going to do anything for you. I said, okay. So anyway, the money that I had made from the designing agency, I had spent all of it in London, all of it, because it was very expensive. And so that was at one time where I said, okay, I need a studio. Now for that you have to help me. I don't know how, but you'll have to help me. So he said, I'm not going to do anything for you because you are so non-dependable. Tomorrow you'll get up and say, I don't want to do this. But the more he started seeing me work day in and day out, he realized that I think it is here to stay. So he warned me and he said, see, I have an extra home of which I'm going to give you just one part. I'm not even going to give you the entire home. I said, okay. So I literally got a kitchen space from another home, which I ran for almost 4 years. And then, I started doing a lot of things there, which he obviously started feeling a lot of pride in, because then he used to go and tell his friends, that's my daughter doing these things. And I'm like, really now? And of course, after that, all that is history. And I bought a new studio, and I do a cloud kitchen space and a lot of other things.
So how did the brand MishMash come into being? When did you decide that, Acha, now this is a legit business and I'm not just taking orders, but I'm kind of building a brand around this. I want to take this into, it's going to be a serious business. What was that moment? Or was it always planned from day one, this is how I'm going to build this?
Yeah, it was actually. I did want to build a brand to a level that it was going to be a brand. Like, there was no intention of just selling from home, because that was never the intention. Otherwise, I wouldn't have worked so hard to come to a place and go to several places and do this. So it was always on my mind. Just the journey of it was not clear, which, taking one step at a time, it started getting more clear. Of course, because of the work I did, I started getting a little bit of recognition. I did a lot of celebrity cakes from the last 3-4 years, and that really helped, because doing big names in this market really helps you.
So how did you get celebrities to discover you, and which are the top celebrities that MishMash has delivered cakes for?
I don't want to sound very boastful, but it's almost all the A-listers of the company, of the Bollywood industry. Some of them are Salman Khan, and I've made it for Amitabh Bachchan, I've made it for the Ambanis, I have made it for Kajol and Ranveer Singh, and most of them. Maybe I could say that because I was associated with a brand like Pooja Dhingra, because I came, into active contact with people from her community. It could have been that of what I can think about. But otherwise, and then it all, happened with word of mouth, knowing from this person to the other. Yeah, and that's how it happened.
Yeah, I mean, I remember some story a few years back where you had to transport a massive cake to Hyderabad for Salman Khan's sister's wedding, and I think the airline did not know how to transport the cake, or some confusion around that.
So we were making a 250 kgs cake for Arpita Khan's wedding, and that I was doing with Pooja Dhingra back then. And Pooja calls me up and says, hey, she wants to meet you and she wants to do a cake. I was like, okay, great. 24th or 5th, as much as I remember. And we were getting ready to go for their party. And I get this crazy banging on the door of my room. I was like, what happened? So the whole team is coming running, and they were panicking. I was like, okay, something has gone wrong. I go out and it's raining, it's pelting, and the whole cake has almost come down. And we literally called a food truck who was serving food over there. We said, "Aap 2-3 food truck lekar aiye bhai." We got the food truck. We had like 30-40 people holding umbrellas next to the cake and then transferring it. And I looked like shit, okay, because I was like done, 2:30 in the morning. And I reached there and I see all Karan Johar and all dressed up really well, and they're like, I'm like, oh, I don't know, he's just like really judging me, and I'm standing on the table assembling the cake again. So it was just a crazy journey there.
I think there is, although it sounds funny right now, but there's a lot of tragedy in an entrepreneur's life.
Of course. I was going through a massive, like whether I should do this or no, whether I start questioning my capabilities, whether I'm capable of doing this, or should I just stop it? A lot of questions passed at that point of time in my head, but I fought it through. From someone who receives 600, 700 likes to a post is getting 60 likes. And then I started questioning myself, have my cake started looking ugly, or what has happened, So then I realized that it's the reels that is really going to work.